I am at Karsani railway station. This is the Tbilisi-Makhinjauri main line, the lifeblood of the nation of Georgia. This place used to be an observatory back in the Imperial Russian era and a secret weapons making facility during World War II. This is now an abandoned station, but nonetheless, it is extremely interesting. Near the main line, there is nothing except for heavy vegetation and this abandoned car, which has just been sitting here. Seems like a pretty rare car as well, not a model you see very often. But besides this, there's no life other than the critters and bugs in the grass. Past these railway tracks is the Mtskheta Tunnel. The Mtskheta Tunnel is a decently long tunnel. It is pretty famous because it is allegedly double track in just one tunnel structure, and it's decently long. You can see that these rails are probably somewhat new. It has the new railway fasteners and the newer rail ties with a custom Georgian Railways mark on it. You can see that the railways are quite straight and quite well maintained around this part, because this is part of the Tbilisi-Gori modernization project, where they have replaced ties and rails. You can see that it's just concrete and it's all very well organized. You can see the ballast. In other parts of the country, sometimes you just have these really old rails with Soviet wooden ties and classic railway spikes. But not here, since this is the main line. You can also see some old structures of the station, such as maybe a lamppost or some kind of signaling post. And this is where people got off to probably go to the observatory, because there's nothing around here. There's not a town. Currently, the population of this region is about 18 as of 2014. You can see that they repainted the posts for the catenary. And right across from me is the Jvari Monastery. Through here pass almost all Georgian Railway passenger routes and Georgian Railway trains that have come from the Caspian ports. Shipping containers from the Caspian ports. You can even see that these have vibration dampeners, which other newer railway fasteners don't have. A lot of these kinds of style of railway fasteners don't have these new features. These are relatively new. When I was here last year, they were still placing down the new ballast and tracks. You can even see some whitish stones. Looks like they might have sprinkled new ballast around here. You can see that you don't have any roots growing from here. There's a little bit of greenery down there, but this is a pretty well-maintained part comparing to the rest of the Georgian railways. This is a pretty special station, considering the historical significance that Karsani has had. You can see the tracks of all the oil trains from Azerbaijan that have come across here. But you can tell that the ties are relatively new because there isn't a ton of oil. If you look at some older sections with concrete sleepers, you will see that it's just black. The sides, this whole area would just be pitch black. So you can see that these are pretty new. And the speed here is unknown, to me at least, but it seems like the trains here might go about 80 due to the curve radius being around 400 meters around this area. Over here we can see the difference between the old ballast and new ballast. You can see how nice and fresh it is. All the rocks are interlocking really well. You see sprinkles of new ballast here. You can see that people have previously been here, maybe some homeless people or squatters. But this is a pretty nice part of the main line, if I say so myself. This is the station of the iconic Karsani Observatory, which has quite a bit of history. And these were the platforms. I can't find which trains served these platforms, but probably would be really cool to find out what sort of services. That means that in the USSR that they had some kind of local services that stopped at all the minor stations. Back in the USSR, this main line was probably extremely busy. Just think of these platforms, if they could talk, what stories they could have. Every single day you had significant people come from the USSR to observe stuff from the observatory. Here you can even see some pretty fresh drops of oil, indicating that these tracks are indeed pretty freshly laid. And over here you can see just the sheer wall of green and all the mountains that surround it, including some pretty unique structures up ahead. The curves here seem to be not very banked, which is why the speed limit is so low, because it served both passenger and freight rail and it had to be intercompatible. This is another look at the station. Beautiful scenery around it. Truly makes me curious to see what this was like back in the USSR. You can even see how fresh the ballast is, judging by the rocks placed on top of the sleepers. That means that some of the ballast hasn't even set in yet. See that? This car is unfortunately lifeless. It's probably beyond restoration, but it's a really unique vehicle and it looks pretty sporty as well. It might have been modified. All the significant Soviet scientists all getting off at this station to go to the observatory not so far away. It really shows that some of the areas here are a shell of what they used to be, and it would be really cool to see what kind of stories this place had, and if we could time travel and just see what this place was back in the USSR, back when it prospered. Because of course the USSR had an extensive passenger and freight rail emphasis, while now Georgia has a real car emphasis, with all sorts of highways being built and railways being dismantled, unfortunately.